now to what all of you have referred to as the area of peacekeeping and women's role. And who better to speak to that than Roshan Khanijo, who's Assistant Director at the Center for Strategic Studies and Simulation at the United Services Institute, New Delhi. And the USI has established a great reputation in terms of training peacekeepers from all over the world, not just from our part of the region. Am I right? and Roshan has been a strategic analyst, and her area of research is on nuclear strategy. And increasingly, I think 1325 perhaps has to begin to, or plus plus, has to begin to address this issue of a nuclear responsibility. We still continue to be a little silent on that for a variety of reasons. So Roshan talks to arms control and speaks to nuclear disarmament and niche technologies, among others. She has also conducted net assessment studies on Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and China. And she's edited several books. And she's been a regular speaker at the Air War College in Hyderabad, Southern Naval Command, another glass ceiling that has been breached. And drawing on your work at the USI, where you've had multiple interactions with UN peacekeepers, especially members of Indian missions. What are the changes that what women's inclusion has brought about, if any? And of course, there are challenges, and if you could address them. Thank you, Roshan.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for inviting me here, and it's an honor to be present here among such an august gathering. I would be dealing with two issues. What are the changes which the women peacekeepers had brought? And the second is what are the challenges? Now, firstly, I would like to say that the women peacekeepers has brought a greater diversity and have broadened the skill set, which has improved the decision making and greater and has operationalized effectiveness in the process. And since we all know that most of the target areas are children and women, so what women peacekeepers have done, they have interlocuted with these people, and they have got involved in gender-based violence and created certain niche for themselves by providing various information in those areas. They have built trust and confidence, and they have interacted with local women in the societies. And here I would like to mention one of the examples what was given to me. In one of the missions, the mission had decided that they wanted to create a camp for women, and it was supposed to be constructed outside the village. So the women officers said that it will not be a success. You need to build the camp inside in the courtyard of the village, because the women cannot go out alone and they have children also. So finally they listened to it, and that was a great success. So this may be a very small input, but it was a very effective input in the success of that mission. Then the women are also involved in both conflict and post-conflict settings, where they negotiate, and they not only negotiate with women who are ex-combatants, but they also deal with child soldiers, and both in the process of demobilizing as well as reintegrating them into the civilian societies. The women interlocutors also helps the local people, because then they get confidence to take part in various reconstruction activities which takes place after the conflict is over. That is another area. Ma'am has already spoken about role models, and I would like to say here that Liberia is concerned as a major success story for Indians, because we had sent the only police unit to Liberia, and the president there, President Sirleaf, had stated that it was a big motivator for the women in Liberia, because soon there also they created a police, all women police unit there. So that was a great thing and a great motivator for them. In Congo, where rape is all often being used as a tool of war, the presence of women peacekeepers opens the door there. Then in Haiti, we find that female officers are also patrolling the borders and reaching out to those in need. Having said all that, but there are also a lot of challenges. For example, if we see 2020, the women constituted just about 4.8% of military contingents and just 10.9% in the formal police units. Now, they are really underrepresented. And because of that, the targets have been reformed. And as for 2028, it has been stated that the women serving in military contingents should be 15%, and 25% should be in as the military observers and staff officers, and further 20% should go to police. Now, how is it possible? The challenges are multidimensional. It is institutional, logistical, systemic, and psychological challenges are there. For example, if we see institutional what challenges we are facing, in order to achieve those targets, the percentage of women in national services in a country needs to increase. In a lot of the countries, we find that the nations do not have enrolled women in military services. So how is it possible? Uh, there are inadequate facilities for women as far as logistics is concerned, and sometimes the geographical terrain is very difficult. Most often we find, which was a common thing which was stated, was that women are often qualified for combat duties, but they have been given more administrative desk duties rather than sending them for patrolling and other duties. Why so? Because we know there is a gender stereotype, and there is a deep rooted patriarchal attitude, and often that leads to resistance towards women peacekeepers, and it undermines their authority. There are also preconceived notions that militaries and armies are hyper militarized spaces. As far as armed groups are concerned, often it has been stated that if there is lack of women peacekeepers, it is a tactical weakness for the missions, because often you don't get the information which is required. You don't get it. As far as opportunities for women is concerned in combat and demobilized zone is there, it needs to be increased. It is less. Sexual harassment, we know it is there and it needs to be tackled, though it is tackled to quite some extent, but still it is there. Because there is lack of standardization regarding strategies for better integration of women in the UN. There's a kind of ad hoc mechanism which is still there. As far as systemic prejudices are concerned, we find that in case of female peacekeepers, conflict-related and sexual violences, that is CRSV traumas, require training, and especially the PTSDs, that is the post-trauma stress disorders, needs to be handled in a very professional manner. Uh, then, if you see the psychological challenges, we know that engendered prejudices regarding the combat readiness of women limits them to base operational duties. So these are few of the challenges which they have to undergo. So what I feel, some of the recommendations what has been coming out is you need to analyze the role of women across operational ranks, and it should not be siloed in tokenization of women across gender bases. And you have to have more women in leadership qualities across all ranks, and then only you can have women at a higher level. These are some of the thoughts just to think across. And I also feel that we may have peacekeepers, but we should also speak in one language with ma'am as far as Manipur is concerned, regarding the children of women and children. Thanks.
Thank you very much. You raise very important issues. Of course, one is a very contentious issue about the role of women itself in combat. I mean, that's a larger issue for feminist theory, but I won't go there. And how we actually make sure that protection doesn't become a form of protectionism. And we are fighting back against that. There's pushback against protectionism and so on. And that we don't duplicate patriarchal practices in peacekeeping. But thank you ever so much for telling us. There's another aspect of it that I think we spoke about and you had highlighted but the resistance from within the home to women peacekeepers. But that has changed post Liberia in India, and how families are now encouraging women peacekeepers to go forward. And so that's a change.